Gentlemen, if I can just get you to take your seats, please. I'll open the ordinary council meeting of the 1st of October 2019. In the event of an emergency, the building may be evacuated. You will be required to vacate the building by the rear entrance and gather at the breezeway between the library and the art gallery buildings. This is council's designated emergency muster point. Under no circumstances is anyone permitted to re-enter the building. Clear has been given and the area deemed safe by authorised personnel. In the event of an evacuation, a member of council staff will assist any member of the public with a disability to vacate the building. Councillors and staff are required to speak into their microphone. You may need to move your microphone closer to you to ensure you are heard and recorded on the live streaming. Your microphone will glow red when it is picking you up. I'll ask the question, can the people up the back hear me? Because at the last meeting there was a few complaints come in from folks said that they couldn't hear. So I'll just remind all councillors to speak directly into your microphone. If you can't hear, tuck your hand up and we'll keep your eye out and try and change the volume. For any apologies for absence?
Apologies from Councillor Hamling, Councillor McRae, Romano.
So we have absences from Councillor Hamling, McRae and Romano. Will someone move those, please? Councillor Duffy, seconder. Councillor Munro, all in favour? Yes, thank you. This council meeting is being live streamed and recorded. By speaking at the council meeting, you agree to be live streamed and recorded. Please ensure that if and when you speak at this council meeting, that you ensure you are respectful to others and use appropriate language at all times. Orange City Council accepts no liability for any defamatory or offensive remarks or gestures made during the course of this council meeting. A recording will be made for administrative purposes. I'd like to acknowledge the Wiradjuri people who are the traditional custodians of the land. I would also like to pay respect to the elders, both past and present, of the Wiradjuri nation and extend that respect to other Aboriginal Australians who may be present. I asked any councillor, do they wish to declare any conflicts of interest in any matter for consideration at the council meeting? Councillor Prevatera first. Thank you.
A significant non-pecuniary interest in item 6.1, as my sister is the owner of the property in question. I'll be leaving the chamber.
Thanks, Councillor Prevatera. Councillor Taylor.
Yes, Mr Mayor, I'll declare a non-significant pecuniary interest in the development application 10 William Street, item 2.2 in the planning papers.
Thanks, Councillor Taylor. Thank you. Councillor Muleta.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. It's not a conflict of interest. I just noticed that in my papers, item 4.1 rescission motion, I don't appear to have any additional information or new information which brings this rescission motion before us. Could the council please provide me with those papers so I can examine them before we start or whilst people are speaking?
There are no papers to go in the business paper. In addition to what is here, there was information circulated by email by the Director.
That's the only
of Technical
information we're relying
Services.
on in those emails? Okay, thank you.
There are no late items. There are no Merrill minutes. I now adjourn the council meeting for the conduct of the open forum. And we have 4 speakers, perhaps 3, but definitely 4 speakers. So you've got your 5 minutes each. Thank you very much. And our first speaker is Mr Brett Stanford, 44 Turner Crescent, Orange. Thanks, Mr Stanford.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. Councillors and staff of Orange City Council, as you've just heard, my name is Brett Stanford and I live at 44 Turner Crescent. Thank you for providing me the time to present some of the concerns of the residents of Turner Crescent regarding the proposed DA for a childcare centre at 36 to 40 Turner Crescent. At the last council meeting, when a rescission motion was made against the proposed DA, the developer stated that he had met with residents 5 times regarding the proposed 2019 development. I'm sorry to say this is simply just not true. There has been no face-to-face consultation with residents on this current DA. Several residents requested mediation with the developer regarding the 2019 DA, and this has never been considered by the developer or the council. We would still like the opportunity, if the rescission motion isn't upheld, to have Councillor Miletto and the Traffic Committee to look further into making that dangerous corner safer with no standing from Monday to Friday, 6:30am to 6:30pm, because it's obviously only needed during business hours to help the traffic flow and to make that quite dangerous corner safer. I want to emphasise though, please, to everybody, I want to make it clear that this request in no way should be taken as an implication that the residents are happy for the DA in its current form to be approved. We are extremely concerned and distressed about the potential impact your decision tonight will make on us. This is not business for us, people. This is where we live. This is our homes, the biggest investment most of us will ever make. In an email to the Director of Technical Services, from the Director of Technical Services to councillors dated the 26th of September 2019, Point 3 referred to Sophie Delezio's horrible accident, quote, immediately resulting in a direction within the RMS not to allow childcare centres access onto classified roads. Just like to point out that Sophie's accident happened on or about the 15th of December in 2003. And yet, the Molong Road Childcare Centre, which is just up the road from Turner Crescent, that childcare centre was built in 2006 with entry and exit onto a classified road, being Molong Road, the Mitchell Highway. The situation with this proposed DA for Turner Crescent is the same as the Molong Road facility. In fact, and this is one of the key issues for us as the residents, if the plans were flipped on the DA and the slip lane, which is already there on Molong Road, was just slightly extended, the car park would be on the classified roadside. Importantly, that would mean then that the child's playground area would be safely at the back of the centre. And this solution makes perfect sense and would be a win for all of us, as I alluded to at the last talk that we did here. It's a win for everybody involved. Yes, a little more effort by the developer, but it's going to have such a better effect for our wonderful, wonderful neighbourhood. On Monday afternoon, just yesterday, the 30th of September, when Councillor Miletto was down visiting us on the block with the residents, the group witnessed a truck that had lost its load on the very roundabout where the centre is going to be built, the Molong Road NDR roundabout. It spilled its loads of huge big hay bales all over the place down there. They just tipped straight off the truck. And this is a classic example of the potential risk to the lives of little kids in particular. I'm not being emotive here. This is just the fact of it. The risk to the lives if this DA is approved in its current form. The residents continue to be concerned about the amount of trucks that use Molong Road, the NDR, and of course that roundabout. And this includes logging trucks and obviously trucks with big heavy loads like hay bales, given our current horrible conditions with the drought. These could all potentially roll or crash into that playground area that is currently situated on the corner. Again, flip the plans and create a safe situation. And also the access of traffic could be fixed with some little bit of work and stuff with the council. In summary, a decision to approve the DA in its current form with entry and exit onto Turner Crescent is quite simply going to ruin our neighbourhood. I'm not being dramatic and I'm certainly not being self-centred. None of the residents, as has been previously stated, are against this proposed childcare centre. It's the traffic into that narrow little street that is going to be the problem. The Crescent is too narrow and totally unsuitable for, it was never designed for a commercial enterprise of this size into that narrow little street. Any large vehicles, especially service vehicles, and we're talking some of the food services vehicles that go to these centres are quite large. Any vehicles, including the trades and emergency services vehicles, plus garbage collection, and residents with caravans are going to find it extremely difficult or next to impossible to access driveways and to be able to park out the front of their own homes. Mastronardi Way is too short and totally unsuitable to take the volume of traffic that will be banking up, turn onto Molong Road and then back down along the Turner Crescent, while also coping with the traffic that's trying to turn from Molong Road, which is already a significant thing in peak hours, without the centre, turning from Molong Road into Mastronardi Way to get down into Turner Crescent. The Crescent was clearly never designed in the first place to cope with traffic created by a large business.
I'll just have to get an extension.
Yeah, move.
Mr Munro.
Thank you very much. I'm nearly finished. The Crescent was clearly never designed in the first place to cope with the traffic created by a large business, as I've said. Please, I ask all the councillors to consider this rescission motion and uphold it until we can have some mediation and negotiation about this and really look at what else can be done. Further, to add to that, I talked with the New South Wales Minister for Regional Transport and Roads today, Mr Paul Toole, and he has responded to our concerns that were sent to him last week, and he told me that if the rescission motion was upheld, quote, the RMS would be very open to looking at the Molong Road proposal with access and egress onto Molong Road, if the council was agreeable. I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Speaker is Mr Graham Scott, 29 Turner Crescent. Thanks, Mr Scott.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, councillors, for the opportunity to be able to speak against this project. The initial response from myself and residents when this was first proposed, I was very apprehensive about the asbestos, and no core drilling has been done in relation to this project. I sunk a bore 100 yards up the road and council charged me $4,000 something to get rid of the asbestos that I drilled out of the ground. And they say, oh, we'll address that when the development starts. That is not a great outcome for a childcare centre or residents within that area. Point two, originally there was another daycare centre at Yarrawonga down the road in a cul-de-sac. It's been a millstone around council's neck ever since it was passed, with the traffic problems and everything else, and it still hasn't been totally fixed. There's always ongoing problems. Do council want to create another one of these sites in Turner Crescent? Point three, garbage pickup. If you come into Turner Crescent with the amount of nappies and so forth, when you relate to other daycare centres without the town, with 0 to 5-year-olds, you cannot get a garbage truck to go into that site and turn around and come out. They're going to drive in, pick up, and got to reverse out into a blind cul-de-sac. That is just a ludicrous decision for safety. Point four, if we had the opportunity to turn this over and come in off Molong Road, this development owns a parcel of land on the top side of the current house on Molong Road, which is only accessible from Molong Road. That triangle could be created. It's part of that development. They own the land, could be as an alternative car park for staff and everybody else, but it's just been totally forgotten about. It hasn't been part of anything. But with the limited car park in that development, it could be utilised if the building was turned over and we came in off Molong Road. They can access that land because it comes back on a triangle. They can't get into it from Turner Crescent. Pedestrian traffic. At no time has anyone taken into consideration the pedestrian traffic, the crest going both ways on the hill, which leaves drivers unable to see pedestrians, This is a busy street with just the residents, let alone 94 families plus 25 staff vehicles vying for position. There is nowhere for most of the staff to park other than on the street, again creating thin drive-through between residents, cars and childcare and traffic centre. The other point that I want to make is buses, school buses. There is no bus pickups within our area. All the kids that live in Turner Crescent have to walk to the corner of Masquerade to be picked up. We do have Live Better buses, Kinross mini buses going around our street, but there's no gazetted council school buses. If you observe on Molong Road of an afternoon, the big pine tree on Molong Road, the school bus stops there, drops all the kids off, and they walk through that vacant land opposite my place. That's how they get to Turner Crescent to go home. But once that development comes to fruition on that vacant land, how many driveways are going to come into Turner Crescent, which is going to impact further on the street? I know it's not developed yet, but we've got to be mindful it's going to be at some stage. And we need to be mindful.
We'll have to get an extension, Mr. Scott.
No, that's just all I need, Mr. Chairman. I thank you for your condolence and my opportunity to speak, and I hope that councillors can see their way clear to be objective on what we've had to say to this evening. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Scott. Our next speaker is Barbara Old, 5 Turner Crescent, Orange. Thank you, Mrs. Old. And our final speaker is Diane G. That's DA 10 William Street.
Thank you, Mayor and councillors. As you're all probably aware, there's been a lot of publicity surrounding tree at 10 William Street. One of the things that seems to have been missed is the ongoing damage that is being done to a heritage building. Now, it has been suggested that if the tree comes down, it won't make any difference to that. It will make it worse. That is not the case. The case is that all trees gather their moisture from the roots. This ongoing drought is only going to exacerbate the problem. The tree is causing damage to the structural part of the building. There is cracks in every single room, and as the tree absorbs any moisture that is under the building, that building is going to continue to deteriorate. So we have a problem with that, and we also have a problem with OH&S, with the damage that boughs can cause. And so I don't understand the problem here. I live on property. I have lots of trees, and I have planted lots of trees. I also have a transformer on my property. So every so often, the people come and mutilate the trees that are under those power lines. I don't like it, but I accept it has to be done because of the danger of trees getting involved in overhead power lines. So I can't, as a person and as a person who has trees and who grows trees and who lives on a property, I understand totally how people feel about a tree, but if the tree is damaging a heritage building, which it's doing and it will continue to do, and if this drought continues the way it is, which there is no, in the foreseeable future we don't see that changing, more damage is going to be done to that property. And I thought that heritage properties were of great significance to our area. So therefore I feel that the tree, as beautiful it is certainly in the wrong place, and it is doing a lot of harm to the building and has the ability to do damage to people. And the council property, the footpaths are all lifting, and I want to repair that building so that it is there for another 100 years. But what's the point when the tree roots are one of the major problems? Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Mrs. G. The council meeting will now resume with 3.1 is confirmation of the minutes of the ordinary meeting held on the 17th of September 2019. Seconded.
Matter arising, Mr. Chairman. Matter arising, it's just to the director to start with, is it's on item notice of motion as a rescission motion. It is, have we had any indication from the developer whether there's going to any court matters going to take place?
Pardon? No formal advice, councillor.
No formal advice. I was just wondering that because the other night, as with up in North Orange, we had a meeting as regards to other things around here, and I know that myself and a couple of other councillors there, and Councillor Miletto was there, and I'm not real sure about what happened, but I do believe Councillor Miletto recorded some of the meeting. Is that correct?
No, it's not correct. I didn't record anything. I don't know where you get the information from. If you're making some sort of allegation, I'd appreciate if you get your facts right, councillor, because I didn't record anything, and I'd like to speak to the person who told you that I did.
I've got that information. So
well, good. Good. Provide it to council, please.
Okay.
Councillor Duffy has the floor. Thank you, Councillor Duffy. Just remind you that that is an allegation against another council,
No,
and it's defamatory.
It's
a defamatory imputation.
I did not make an allegation.
Just refrain from doing it. Councillor Miletto, take your seat.
I'm done.
Seat, please.
I did not make an allegation.
Councillors, both you take your seats. Take a seat.
I
wouldn't waste my time recording anything that you said anyway, councillor.
Mayor's understanding. The mayor has this. Both want to leave the chamber. I'm quite willing to.
I'm happy to leave the chamber with you.
Go. Now, I warn both of you, civility in here. Mind you, if you defamatory imputations, it's recorded, don't take it up in the chamber. No, the rules, that's good.
Answer me questions. Questions been answered.
So you, right. Okay, we've got a show of hands for the minutes. All in favour? Against? Councillor Duffy, you didn't have your hand up either way.
I did. I put it up first.
Okay, they're all up. Okay, now the council meeting adjourns for the conduct of the policy committee, and with your indulgence, I will do the finance policy committee in place of Councillor McRae, if that's okay. So first of all, we have Planning and Development Policy Committee, Councillor Turner. Just make sure you're fit.
Behave yourself, Russell.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I have pleasure opening the Planning and Development Committee at about 7:25. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest that haven't already been declared? They haven't, so I'll go on to general reports. 2.1, items approved under the delegated authority
Recommendation, Mr Chairman.
of Council.
Second it.
And interesting, in amongst the vast array of delegated authority, we have 11 modifications, but very importantly, we have 18 from the Alcyon Group that are refurbishing the old Myer building. And a lot of those shop fronts that are being developed, they range in from $60,000 to $250,000 to fit out those shops. So all those shopkeepers, potential new shopkeepers that are either transferring from somewhere else or, more importantly, those that are new to Orange. We wish them all the very best as they open, we are told, around November. And Mr Mayor, you told me the total amount of dollars.
About 6.8 million.
About 6.8 million is being approved tonight if we decide to go that way. So 2.1 items approved under delegated authority have been moved by Councillor Whitten, seconded by Councillor Nugent. All those in favour? Against? Carried. 2.2 development application.
I'll move. I'll declare a.
Yeah, Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. (2.2) Development application for 10 William Street, been moved by Councillor Duffy, seconded by Councillor Kidd.
Just a
Discussion.
Yes, just a quick comment. I just encourage the developer to get the Echo chainsaw going or the Stihl chainsaw, whichever one they want to use, to knock it down because they don't belong in cities.
Quickest comment you've made for a long time, Councillor Duffy. Councillor Nugent.
Thanks, Mr Chair. Look, I'm speaking against the recommendation. Just a quick recap on this issue. It came before us at the last meeting. There was a staff recommendation to refuse the DA and keep the tree. That was a recommendation from staff supported by the our heritage advisor. It was also supported by an independent arborist report, which supported the retaining of the tree, with some pruning, lopping, and cleaning up of the tree branches that might be overhanging the car park and the roof. Now, it does concern me that we seem to be getting a bit of a track record of either ignoring or dismissing the staff recommendations on things, and this was one of two times that it happened at the last meeting. So it is a magnificent tree, and I think everyone recognises that. Whether it's in the wrong place, I'm not sure. It's a magnificent tree. It's an icon of that area. I have spoken to a lot of people who have feel a great deal of personal connection to that tree. And would like to see it maintained. There was an article in the paper this morning where an arborist was offering to do the pruning of the tree for free and giving it 12 months to see how that might work in terms of managing the tree in the longer term and managing it while it's there. So, so that offer has been put on the table, and to me, I think we were a bit hasty making that decision last time round. I think we should give the tree that 12-month period. Let's see how it goes with some lopping and cleaning up, and some sort of tidying up of some of the branches, and maintain that magnificent tree, which does have a significant amenity value to the city in that particular area, as I mentioned at the last meeting. According to that City of Melbourne tree calculated, it's worth something like $116,000 in amenity value to the area. So that would be my recommendation, is that we don't approve this tonight. We give the tree 12 months. It has been there a long time. The building's been there a long time. Yes, I acknowledge Mrs G's concern about the cracking in the walls, but the reports that I've read, the Cook and Roe report, suggests that there's a whole range of reasons why that has occurred. And I don't think that cracking is going to get significantly worse over the next 12 months. The damage that has already occurred has already occurred. So in this case, because of the beauty and the quality of that particular tree in the location, the amenity value, I'll be voting against this recommendation.
Councillor Miletto.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll be speaking in support of the recommendation. Purely from a liability point of view, I see that with that tree, I mean, it's been acknowledged that it has caused significant damage. Mrs. G herself has indicated that tree is drawing from moisture in the ground, and certainly we are in a drought period. There is evidence to suggest that the tree has caused damage to property and potentially people already. So in my respectful opinion, I would submit, Mr. Chair, that it is foreseeable that that tree is going to injure somebody, and that would leave this council, we shouldn't say will, but may leave this council liable in the circumstances that did occur, regardless of whether a tree is pruned and a branch falls on somebody. But if that tree, for some reason, continues to damage the foundations of that property, or those telecom wires which are in a short distance away from the base of the tree, where does that leave council as far as liability is concerned by not approving the recommendation? That would be my question to the directors. Or the appropriate director. I'd like to have someone have a crack at it.
I didn't want to crack it. One wants to have a crack at it, Councillor Mileto.
But Councillor Mileto, there has been some information.
Mr Hodges will have a go, sorry. Okay.
Legal opinion here.
Information circulated previously to councillors in relation to legal liability for street trees, not in the recent weeks. The position would be general sense, because it's on a case-by-case basis, that the council would need to have reasonable grounds basis to refuse the removal of the tree once it became aware of a potential problem. So matters such as arborist reports or engineer reports or other matters to justify the decision-making process.
Is there any obligation on behalf of council to speak to the applicant's insurance company to gain their position on it with regards to what's going to happen in the future? Because it still comes back to the same question. It's foreseeable, in my opinion, that that tree is going to continue to damage the property of a lady who doesn't want it there.
Take that question on notice.
Thank you.
Councillor Kidd.
Look, Mr Chair, I have to support the recommendation in this case, and I don't think there's anyone I know in this room that's planted more trees in Orange than I, who's got as deep a passion as I do have for trees, going back for several decades. And I think most important thing is that I can say sometimes we make mistakes. I've done it at home. I've had to remove some trees because they've outgrown the usefulness where they were, and it caused danger. My house, plus found its way right through to a septic system. In the case of this tree, is it a good specimen? It is a good specimen. No doubt, no argument. But it is in the wrong place. Most definitely. It is a very, very large tree. I'd even venture to say that, like I used to teach arboriculture, I like reading these things of experts, but I think it's sometimes very, very similar to getting an opinion from lawyers. You go to 4 different lawyers and get 4 different advice, same matter. What it is, it's advice, it's a professional opinion. Opinion, it's not fact, it's opinion. Now, that tree has already had limbs come off it. That's fact. Luckily, land on anyone. Secondly, I'll put my profession on it. The damage caused to the footpath and the damage going back to the house and in the foundation is from the roots of that tree. It is not from the grass. It's not from the ants. It's not from the people that are going to that clinic. Let's be quite clear, that is a fact. Secondly, I read that article about they will go at their cost, climb up to see if there's any rot in the tree. Not about whether there's some rot in the tree or not. But I do know by cutting some of the limbs off these trees, and everyone knows my opinion with when potential energy has to go around, we're displacing some of these trees. We're taking limbs out of them and you get the weight displaced in a different direction. It's not even. You got wet with wind, wrong direction, more prone to actually perhaps come down. That tree is a very, very old heritage. It's one of our oldest streets in Orange, Dora Street. Council chambers used to be for East Orange Council. Have a look at the bluestone foundations along there and have a look at the old houses. It's a very, very significant streetscape for me, Councillor Nugent, because I was married at St Barnabas Church. I was an altar boy there. So it's very important to me, that street. But I still think that that tree needs to come down. Not a street tree. It's in fact inside in the gardens. I don't agree with the comment that we're getting a reputation for taking trees out. Orange has green space, which includes trees, about 6.5 acres per 1,000 head of population. Canberra's about 4.5. I think we're a pretty green city. Got lots of parks. In any of our subdivisions, we're putting in new ones and we're out there planting trees. More trees, and you have a look out at Clifton Grove as a good example, where that was all bandicoot country and bitty bush. Have a look at Clifton Grove now and look at all the trees that have been planted in there, the people that have bought properties out there. So I think sometimes you've got to be rational in saying a tree. Trees, do they have a value you can put on? Of course they do. But there are lots of other trees as street trees, and I'm quite sure the gardens will be in that area with trees that are suitable. In this case, it is a tree in the wrong place. Quite often, if you've got a wart on your nose, it's part of you, but you'll probably get it removed because it's in the wrong place.
Right, Councillor Whitten.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well said, Mr. Mayor. I don't know about the wart bit, but anyway.
The old boy.
I'm not going to go there, Councillor Duffy. Look, a bit of common sense has to prevail here. The tree itself is in private property, and at the end of the day, people who own the land have got to have some say about their property. And this particular tree, whilst it's beautiful, any of us, and I live on a farm as well, and the Mayor earlier said at last week's meeting that gums of this type just drop branches for no reason. Come off, and if you're in the paddock when one goes down, thank God that you weren't another 15 metres over towards that tree when it came off, because they don't know mercy when they do come down. And if a limb comes off that particular tree, especially in the times that we are, and I've seen these limbs come off in good times, effective of drought, they just drop them. And the size of that tree over there, it would show no mercy, and I'd hate to think what would be underneath it when it does go or drops a limb. The interesting question about the article today is, how did that sign get up that tree on private property? The owner of the land, I'd be asking, right? So, people need to start respecting other people's property and stop telling them how to live.
Councillor Whitten, Councillor Munro.
Look, there's sensible people in the world, and then there's the rest of them. Look, I think just do it. I said last time we should have just made the decision, put a time periods on when work could be done and get the thing down as soon as possible. Don't want to, Mrs G deserves, the owner of the property deserves her sovereignty of her land. She deserves to take the tree down. She wants the tree down. She wants to fix the house up. Let's make it easy and just take the tree down. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll just make a few comments and then allow Councillor Duffy to finish up. As most of you know, we have a property out at Clifton Grove, and the Mayor just mentioned Clifton Grove. I counted the gum trees or eucalypts today, and we have about just on 45. One of them this week, I put it down because of the dry conditions, dropped a large branch. For no reason, just dropped the branch. I took one big load to the tip, and I've cut up just on 2 tonne of firewood off that one branch. If that had dropped in Dora Street, there would have been potential to have huge injuries to anyone or cars or whatever it might be. So as we have repeatedly heard last meeting and this meeting, eucalypts don't really belong in the city environs. They belong out in rural areas. Everyone agrees it is a wonderful tree. It was just planted in the wrong place.
Point of clarification, Mr.
Yes, Councillor Kidd.
Yes, there are some eucalypts that you can grow in town, but not that species. There are a lot of eucalypts that are quite small or shrubby and are small trees, and they're quite suitable. But a tree such as this one, not suitable in an urban environment, particularly in a normal size yard.
Councillor Duffy, do you want to finish up?
I'm going to do a wind up for that one. I just wanted to know what the point of clarification was, but I couldn't work it out from the professor.
Wind up going to be as short as your introduction.
I just want to reiterate what Mrs. G said about the some things happen and we don't want to see it happen, but when essentially only come around, I mean, we only got to go up to our lone pine tree up there on Bathurst Road to see what happened to it. You know, none of us like that, but you know, who knows what happened there? But I refer everyone to go up Austin Street, up near Canobbas High School. Every greenie, whatever you want to put up there, go up there and have a look at the size of that tree that fell down up there. All I say is that thank God it wasn't school holidays and had kids playing in it, because they would have been someone would have been killed when you look at the size of that. And let it come down. Let's move on.
Thanks, Councillor Duffy. Right, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, raise your hands. Those against, motion is carried. 2.3 development. We'll get Councillor Taylor back. 2.3 development application 269 to 279 Summer Street.
Move the recommendation.
Robertson Park Public Amenities Building. Been moved by Councillor Kidd, seconded by Councillor Nugent. Discussion. Or have we had enough discussion?
No, I just want to clarification, Mr. Chairman. I want to know the time frame. I want to know what the time frame is, when it goes for advertising, when we're going to start building it, and what is its completion date.
Hodges, or do you want to comment on approximate?
Be me.
Oh, sorry.
For 20 odd years, so surely we should be able to have some idea when it goes.
The process from here, Councillor, is that we need to do detailed design. So all we have at the moment are architectural drawings. So we would need to complete those. So that's engineering design and detailed architectural design. Then we need to go to tender, and the tender period's normally about 40 days. We have Christmas in the middle of that, and so we'd likely bring a report back, I'd imagine, end of February, early March, for an approval to awarding of a tender. Construction time frame, I would estimate of 6 to 9 months, depending on, probably 6 months, I'd imagine. So that's estimates, Councillor.
Yeah, I'm speaking obviously in support of the recommendation. One of the things which I didn't consider last time we voted, and it was brought to my attention, I was speaking to a gentleman down the street, and he raised the issue of the public toilet in Robinson Park. And he said, look, what a lot of people don't understand is that men with prostate problems, they need to go to the toilet, have to go straight away. And I never considered that because I'm fortunately not in that position at this point in time. He said, but it's very embarrassing when you can't get to a toilet, in a quick period of time. And certainly it was something which I was concerned about, because he was in the park and had to get across the road, and was something which I think we overlook people's health sometimes rather than just having the facility there.
Councillor Nugent?
Yeah, I'm speaking in support of the recommendation as well. And I just wanted to commend the staff on the design, the solution that they've come up with here. The design is great. I think it looks good. I like the orientation of it. It takes into account the Orange OC Future City ideas that have already been sort of tabled in other forums. It protects the deodar cedar tree, and it has a minor impact on other developments. And I understand that those memorials will at some stage be moved down to the other end of the park. So I think it's a fantastic solution, and I commend the staff.
Councillor Taylor.
Speak against the motion, Mr. A caveat. I've been here, done that before. As far as this process is concerned, the approval process here, I think I look back through records. I think I've originally Robson Park for hopefully Anzac celebrations. I think 2003. We are 2000 and 19, and now we're told probably the time frame we won't have it in place for 2020. It'll be 2021 Anzac Day. But welcome if they approve this. Like I say, I've been here, done that before, and I'll save my celebrations for now.
Chair, could I ask a question of whoever's relevant to this, Danny? Do we have to put this out to tender? It's only a toilet. Can't we do it within our council? We've got just about everyone, except for probably a bricklayer, employed. Can't we approve this and do our own costings and get it built? That we build roads, we build many things. We've got plumbers employed.
Mr. Maunder, do you want to comment?
Please. Through you, Mr. Chair, we don't have the staff available for a construction of this nature included in a time frame that's acceptable to council. We simply don't have plumbers, electricians, plasterers, bricklayers, surveyors looking for work to do to commence a construction of this nature. So if we recast our existing staff, we would then have to backfill those staff to do the jobs that they're otherwise currently engaged in to do. So we don't have a works crew, for example, that we can just swing across. So
it might be.
It could be technically possible. I'd suggest the time frame would be longer and it'd probably be more expensive.
Fair dinkum. That's all right. Thank you. Answer the question.
Thank you, Councillor Munro. Any other comments? Right, this is a historic occasion. Barring rescission motions, I'm sure no one will be going to put in a rescission motion. All those in favour? And it's unanimous.
All but one tomorrow. Yeah, we'll be issuing that enough.
Okay, that completes the Planning and Development. Call on Councillor Miletto for the Employment and Economic Development Committee.
Councillor Turner. Declared the the Employment Economic Development Policy Committee open at 7:50 p.m. Item 1.1 Declaration of Peculiar Interest, Significant Non-Peculiar Interest and Less than Significant Peculiar Interest. Are there any? There being none, we'll move on to item number 2, Committee Minutes.
Move the recommendation, Mr. Chair.
Second that.
Second it.
Yeah. There being none, all in favour?
Aye.
Hands. Carried. Close the meeting at 7:51. Call upon infrastructure these days.
Hey.
My apologies, Councillor.
Thank you, councillors. I'll open the Infrastructure Policy Committee at 7:50. 1.1 Declaration of Pecuniary Interest, Significant Non-Pecuniary Interests, Less than Significant Non-Pecuniary Interests. Are there any? Item 2, Committee Minutes. 2.1 Minutes of the Airport Community Committee meeting 28th of August 2019.
Happy to remove the recommendation.
Moved by Councillor Miletto, seconded by Councillor Nugent. Any discussion on the minutes? Being no discussion, I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Motion's carried. Item 3, General Reports. 3.1, Current Works.
Good.
I'm able to move it, Mr. Chairman. Duffy, it's been moved by Councillor Duffy. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Munro.
Yeah, this is
Councillor
just a question to the director. How long before we kick in stopping the environmental flows? The reason why I ask this.
Just one moment, Councillor Duffy. Just let the director answer. Councillor Duffy, wait.
Yeah, ask the question.
Ask a question. Let the director answer, please. Don't answer it for him.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'll refer to our water city manager.
Anyone else? And pass to you.
Please.
Microphone.
You're on TV, sort of, almost.
We're talking to.
Thank you.
I'm happy with that. It just seems so silly that we keep the environmental flows when we're in such dire straits for water, not only here, but Dubbo and all these other places. I even saw the mayor with the Molong mayor.
Look, can I just say, look, that's the doom and gloom I hate. We're not in dire straits whatsoever. If people would read what's in the newspaper and what we put out weekly, our dam levels are down to about 30%. In reality, looking at how much water we use per day, per week, per month, that is about 12 to 14 months water, potable water, at the rate that we're using at the moment. That's with zero inflow whatsoever. That's not using bores and so forth. That's why I keep trying to make the point, the preemptive way of looking at doing a great job that we've actually done. We live in a community. We're not in the same straits that Dubbo or Bathurst or Burke or Walgett or anything, and we should. We're here representing ratepayers, know our facts, talk the facts of the situation.
Councillor Munro, what are we talking to here? We have a motion to move the report. What are you speaking for or against?
I was just going to agree with the mayor for once, and in regards to the water situation, and I was watching Sunrise the other morning, just for discussion. Mayor Dubbo was on their bin, pretty much revving it up the government to try and get more infrastructure money out there to build dams and the rest of it. But, you know, they don't hear about the good news that we've done here over the years. They haven't implemented the things that we've implemented to save the water and educate our population. So I wonder if the council's permission, we can send, probably already got it, the information, Ben, but, you know, circulate that to other councils, show them what can be done and how to go for funding for these things, stormwater harvesting and that.
Thank you, Councillor Munro. Councillor Miletto, Councillor Nugent was going to be before you, so if I may allow him to speak next. They're talking to this particular motion, I believe.
Motion to acknowledge the report.
The adopted reports.
Works. Cool.
Thanks, Mr.
Been in the chair for a while, so I'm going to allow them to speak just for the airtime, you know. Nugent.
Yeah, thank you for the time. Look, I just a follow-up question to Councillor Duffy's, and I do want to say, Councillor Duffy seems hell-bent on destroying the environment by cancelling all environmental flows, and I don't really understand that, because if we don't have an environment, we don't have you know, a society to live in. We don't have a community to live in. So it's all about getting the balance right. I think the mayor hit the nail right on the head in terms of we're not in dire straits. You know, we've got to get the balance right. A follow-up question in relation to changing the environmental flows. If that is going to happen, what is that something that council decides, as in the whole council, or is that something that is decided operationally? And what advice will be provided to councillors in relation to that change if it occurs?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. No, that's not a council decision. That process, like I said earlier, goes through the Natural Resource Access Regulator. So they look at all of the licensing aspects of that environmental release. Like I said before, we're talking with them, trying to fast track that process as best we can. So I suppose it's a matter of watching this space. We're not really sure as to whether that will need some form of public exhibition as well, if required. So once again, working with NRA on all of that.
A point of clarification, Mr. Chairman, with
Councillor Duffy.
Councillor
It's
Nugent's
Councillor
comment that I
Miletto.
seem hell-bent on stopping environmental products.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Take a chair, take a chair.
My question is, I'm just going a bit off the track as well with
Councillor
regards...
Miletto, to be fair, I'm going to allow you to speak. Next council meeting when I'm up here, I'm going to go back to being nasty, Jeff, okay? Following the chamber meeting. Councillor Miletto, you have the floor.
Thank you. My question is just with regards to water, and it's not probably an issue for council as such, but I was asked a question last week by several people with regards to why permits are still being issued to drop bores when we're in level 4 going to level 5 water restrictions. The people who spoke to me said, well, it's not really fair that this occurs, and they were curious to know what impact, if any, that is having on our water supply and how that is tested. Did council receive any information from the relevant authorities as to where these are being dropped and what impact it has on those areas?
Anyone like to answer that question?
The council's not informed of new applications as they're made. Obviously, they're assessed on their merits, whether or not it's in a rural situation or a domestic request, but we're not the authority for that approval.
Righty. I'm going to put the motion, but before I do that, I think Councillor Duffy...
Wait.
Sorry.
I've got a question not related to water.
Privatera. My apologies.
All I got is Shellery Road reconstruction. Is there any time frame on the finish date of that?
Sorry, I didn't quite hear
Shirley
the
Road.
question.
No, I don't have through you, Mr. Mayor. It's imminent. We're at the boxing stage, so we'll be putting gravel down soon enough. There's a few minor details we have to work through around the corner there in improving the corner, but it's certainly we're at the formation of the road now and put curb and gutter down soon enough.
Thank you, councillors. There's no further discussion. I'll put the motion.
No right of reply, Mr. Chairman.
Have a motion.
Yes, we did. I moved the motion.
No.
In favour, aye.
Put the motion. All those in favour? Against? The motion is carried. Thank you, thank you, councillors. And I'll ask now for the chair of the Councillor Privatera to come up for the Environmental Sustainability Committee. Don't be easy on him, Councillor Privatera.
I'd like to open the Environmental Sustainability Policy Committee, time being 8 o'clock. Any councillor have a pecuniary interest, significant non-pecuniary interest here?
I think Councillor Duffy does. He's obviously got a prejudice against the environment, apparently.
I want the Greens to move more dams.
Yeah, you're environmental vandal.
And to have more environmental flows.
All right. So nobody's got anything to declare? Item 2.1, minutes of the Parks and Waterway
I'll
Committee.
move those for you, Mr. Chair.
Any discussion on the item? There being no discussion, I'll put the motion. All for?
Sorry.
The motion carried. And councillors, that concludes the Environmental Sustainability Committee. Next is the Service Committee by Scott Munro. Sure.
Okay, open the Service Policy Committee meeting tonight. Now on the meeting on the 1st of October 2019, 8 o'clock, 2 minutes past 8. Item 2.1, minutes of the Community Safety Crime Prevention Committee, 26th of August.
Will you move it?
Assuming there's no
No discussion
conflict?
at all.
Could I just make one comment, particularly on the, I think it's within that, the Parent Responsibility Act? If I may, it's just got a report there from the 1st of January to the 30th of June 2019. What's really important about that, as Councillor Taylor knows quite well, how difficult it was to get this in as a tool. We were the first ones to have it in the state of New South Wales, and it was brought in under Premier at that time, Bob Carr. But if you have a look down there, there were 11 young people that the police were able to take out of harm's way, or the potential of harm's way, and actually take them home to a safe place without having to charge them and all the other trauma. Now, even if it was only one or two children, speaks for itself. So I think it's a very valuable tool. I know we have to report against it twice a year, but I think it would be the envy of some other towns and cities. Love to have this opportunity. And if you ask the police in particular, they all say that this is a great tool that they've got in there. They go out there and there's young people that are wandering around the streets and perhaps hanging around places they shouldn't be at night where there is a potential danger.
Mr. Chairman, I'll just add to that. And I mean, the Mayor and I, we go back a long history as far as not only putting this Act in place, but keeping it in place. And there were plenty of times that we fought against the Parliament to retain the Act, and they kept lifting the bar as far as the reporting was concerned, and we were determined as far as this community was concerned to keep that Act in place. The thing to remember, as the Mayor has alluded to, Orange is only community in New South Wales. There is no other community in New South Wales where the police can actually deem a child under the age of 16 at risk, so that they can remove them from the streets, remove them from what they believe could be harm. That could be just hanging around with the wrong people. But they can do that, and they take them then to what they deem a safe place, which is sometimes home, sometimes a safe place is a designated place, but most times it's home, and a lot of times parents aren't even aware those children are out on the streets. So it is something that Orange should be very proud of. We've had it in place now since 1995, fought tooth and nail to keep it there. But isn't it reassuring for parents in this city that those children, if their children are on the streets late at night, police drive past and deem that they're at risk either of being with the wrong crowd or perpetrating a crime, if they believe that they may be about to perpetrate a crime, police can actually take them, put them in the car and drive them home or to a safe place. It's worth fighting for, it's worth keeping. And we have, every time they've raised the bar, successive governments, we've always got across that bar, and it's something that we should be proud of as a community.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Taylor. Look, I agree 100%. If I wonder if there's, might be able to ask for some advice here. You got stats from police on how many children over a period of time have been.
We have that information.
The police have to keep very.
That's gold. That's gold, because this is how government policy should be created by somewhere that's done this for so long, with a good actual record of statistics on how many children could have been saved, got out of harm's way. To write a letter maybe to the Ministry in regarding to this, to see if we can get it furtherly, more widely spread. Or if other councils...
Mr. Chairman, we've jumped the bar every time. Many communities in this state have had the Parental Responsibility Act and Child Protection Act in place.
Got rid of it.
And they have not met the criteria, the very high criteria that the government have set. and they wanted them with much lower criteria. And we, to our credit and to our staff's credit and the police in Orange's credit over the years, have just lifted the game every year to keep it in place. So it's something unique to Orange. You can't do it in Bathurst. Kids are on the street in Bathurst, they can't do it. Dubbo, you can't do it. Anywhere else in New South Wales. That's what I'm saying. Something that we should all be proud of. And I can remember up at the Emus club, and the Mayor and I were speaking to the then Premier Bob Carr, and his government at that stage wanted to scrap it because there was very little lack of interest. But he himself believed strongly in the Act because of the way that Orange had implemented it and the success story of Orange. So it is something unique to Orange, Mr. Chairman. With all respect, we've done our hard work. Let's keep it here in Orange.
Yeah, 100%.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I remember those days you're talking about, Councillor Taylor. I remember as a police officer myself, I used to have the privilege of taking some of those lovely children home to their parents who didn't know they were out. And when they weren't home, there used to be a safe house out at Lucknow at one point in time, and there was also one out at Spring Hill. Yeah, Huntley, sorry. And needless to say, when the parents did decide to get themselves home on occasions, they weren't that happy to come out and pick those children up the next morning.
Mm.
How do we broadcast that success to the wider councils through local government or what?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the mechanism is that the council in of itself has to make the application. Yep. So if you wanted a mechanism to do that, I suppose you could do it through one of the local government forums. But it is an onerous process. Seek approval from the Governor General to have the Act in place, but it is something that needs to be instigated by the individual councils.
Well, thank you. Okay, any other discussion? The motion? All in favour? Put the motion. All good? Against? No one? I think so. Okay, item 2.2, minutes of the Ageing and Access
Move the recommendation.
meeting.
Chairman, just I suppose it's almost a matter arising as far as access committee is concerned, but I'd like to see it come back directly to the council. I've been made aware that there is a down in Wollongong they use tables in their parks. It's the simplest concept ever. What they do is they just put some extra concrete on the end or of the actual bench, chair accessible. There, I've got photos that a lady has supplied me of them. I think that council, I think it'd be a great idea for us as a council now on to put these benches in when most simple idea, but it's effective and it provides people in will access to park benches, tables to park. So I'll just give forward notion. I'll be putting that to the next. I know the access committee is in place. I do know about it. I chaired it for 16 years. But I think it should be a decision made by council as part of our policy that we implement benches and tables in our park.
Wonderful idea. Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sorry.
Mate. Question. In relation to item 4.2 and the Aged Forum Action Plan on page 45, it talks about housing choices, monitor existing and new housing stock to ensure a variety of options available, which also connects back to objective 5.3 of our community strategic plan, which is work with government agencies and non-profit organisations to reduce the incidence of homelessness by supporting the need for affordable and social housing. At our last meeting, we voted down a staff recommended and apparently compliant development at Lantana Place for social and affordable housing. with that objective in our strategic plan. I'm just interested in what the next steps are, what council is going to do, what action council might take in relation to addressing the need for social and affordable housing, which sees 200 plus people on our waiting lists. So yeah, I'm just interested in what the next steps are. We seem unable to approve these sorts of developments.
That's a very good question. Thank you. I think it's really. No, I'll take advice. I think it's probably a policy on how we go forward regarding these sorts of developments and how we salt and pepper maybe things. I don't know. I'll look at. I'll take advice.
Perhaps Mr. the Acting Director.
Through you, Mr. Chair. The matter arising that's referenced in the minutes from Councillor Duffy at the last meeting called for Council to identify mechanisms available to address suitable locations in Orange for development of social housing. So effectively, I'll be bringing a report back to Council to address that, and we'll address the questions of Councillor Nugent.
With regards to that request by Councillor Duffy, and are you referring to council-owned land? Are you suggesting that council will become developers to these housing on? Is that the intention of the report?
Councils are already developers. They're developing the George Wiley Place. You might recall that decision. Mr. Mayor, Mr. Chairman, sorry, I was getting ahead of my times there. I encourage the other members of the committee to also identify other land up around Maramba Place, around Glenroy, and all these other places around town to identify for affordable homes and social housing and all those type of things. So you have a mix there to go from, and let some discussion come back into council via the committee. Just common sense, and I think the made that comment.
That was a very, very good question by Councillor Nugent. And Councillor Nugent, I attended a meeting last night at Waratah Sports Club. Look, council should encourage social and affordable housing, but not encourage social and affordable housing where it potentially destroys people's lives. People's lives are affected. We heard here tonight describe the decision we're going to be debating soon over Turner Crescent as it's not just business. Those people, it's life. I'm quite over it. We've had George Wiley Place. All we wanted to do was compromise on the access and egress. That was knocked back. At 78 Forbes Road, for what reason that was abandoned, who knows? Who knows? There were dozens and dozens of people who were adversely affected by that decision. We then had Lantana Place. People had put their life savings into their homes and mortgaged their homes in neighbourhoods where they wanted to raise their children in an ambience that was safe and secure. Put their life savings into. Now we have Emerald Place, now being pushed through the JRPP, the Joint Regional Planning, which I personally believe is a denial of democracy. It should come back through the council. The decision made. Council made the decision on Lantana, and that was a democratic decision. I never got lobbied by one person over Lantana in the period between the initial meeting that I missed and when the rescission motion went forward. So they must have felt comfortable they had the numbers there. They didn't. Council made that decision. But what has to be done, and Councillor Whitten alluded to it, and we've had a long discussion over this as far as the implementation of policy, and we outlined this at the last council meeting. We're going to have social housing, and it is a fact of life. Social housing, in a lot of cases, I went through it, I lived through it, where I had people who lived in their homes for 50 or 60 years, about 15 years ago, where the Department of Housing came in and knocked over 2 or 3 blocks of old fibro homes and put in blocks of units. Go around those areas now and ask how it's worked. Go and ask them all how it's worked. The thing that annoys me the most is the decision makers of the organisations and the decision makers here.
They're under no threat to have social housing or affordable housing. We know that we have to have social housing and affordable housing, but the current model does not work. The current model, I will not continue to support the current model while ever it attempts to destroy people's lives. When you're dealing with people in this chamber, we've seen them in tears. I've had them on the phone in tears. Please help us. Please help us. That's how can you say that you want to help one element of society, that is people who are looking for social and affordable housing, but then destroy the lives of another element in society? That's not an equal society. Everyone has a right. And like I say, people have a right. They put their life savings into their homes, into their mortgages. They want to raise their children in safe neighbourhoods. They make a choice, a conscious choice where they're living. Then they have a block of units put in. You only need one or two problems there, and then their entire lifestyle and their ambience is totally destroyed. I understand that. If it happened to me, would be upset. Everyone in this room, and councillor in this room, and I've said it before, I don't think there's any one councillor in this room that would be under threat of having social housing next to them. As far as I know, the organisation is pushing for this also. I don't know if they're senior staff. I don't know where they live, but I bet they live in areas where they're not going to be under threat either. So don't knock people. It does not devoid their rights to protect their assets and their lifestyles. And that's what annoys me about this. And we have to revisit the model. Let the developers allocate the land when they put the subdivisions up on the maps. Let them allocate the areas for social and affordable housing. Then let the developers try and sell the land around it. That sounds fair to me.
There's a good comment.
Just a point of order, Mr. Chair. We've asked for a report to come back.
Yep.
What we're here, there's no motion. We're all putting in our opinions and getting into a discussion before we've even got the report back. And I would think...
Well, Nugent, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Chair, I think I have the floor.
Fair enough, yep.
So with the report coming back, I'm quite sure that we'll all have the opportunity to debate that on the floor. Is that right?
Absolutely, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Whitten.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Referring to the action plan that Councillor Nugent has commented on, it is an action plan from a committee that reports to this chamber, and we are not dictated to. It is a reference point that we agree to as action points. Once the action points become policy or a recommendation for ratification by council, we debate it. At the end of the day, I'm not going to be bullied by developers nor council or a councillor in how I vote, because I represent the community of Orange. I listen to the community of Orange, and I vote on behalf of what I believe is right for the whole of the community of Orange, not just developers.
Excuse me.
Sorry?
Follow-up question, Mr.
Oh, it's
Chair.
okay. Go for it.
I think we're getting into a debate here.
Just, give him a crack. Yeah.
Well, I've been accused of bullying and,
I'm not accusing. Point of order, Mr. Chairman. I didn't mention any names. I was told that I shouldn't have voted the way I voted.
Point of order, why is he on his feet?
Again, I will take my feet. Councillor Nugent, you'll have to sit down.
Yeah, please.
It's over it. The debate will finish now. There's no motion on here. We have it. Take a seat. I think it finishes here. Move on.
Rightio, we'll move on. Okay. We put the motion. All in favour? Yeah. Any against? No. Thank you. Was lively. Okay. 2.3. Minutes of the NAIDOC.
Move it, Mr. Chairman.
Hey, second it, Mr. Chairman. All right, very good. Any input? Discussion? No? Okay. Let's put it. Favour? Against? All good. Okay, thank you. Carried. Thank you, councillors. Policy Committee meeting end at 22 minutes past. Hour of 8. Next, Mr. Kidd. Councillor Kidd.
Thanks, Councillor Munro. I'm sitting in for Finance Policy Committee Chairperson, Councillor McRae, who's recovering for her operation late last week. I open the Finance Policy Committee meeting at 21 minutes past 8. There were no declarations of pecuniary interest earlier, so I'll move to 2, which are general reports. 2.1 is request for financial assistance for the Australian National Field Days street sweeper.
Second it, Mr Mayor.
Who moved that? Councillor Nugent, seconder. Councillor Munro. All in favour, show of hands.
Just a
hold
question,
it,
Mr. Chairman.
question, yeah.
I cannot see. Someone might be able to inform me of why this is not in the initial program or when we approve everything to happen every year.
I'd suggest to you because they hadn't wrote in and asked for it then. Is that correct?
Right, there's no budgetary implications, I assume.
Yeah, Councillor Milletta.
Just regards to the amount, Mr Mayor, is it have to be some special application because it's over $2,000 or?
No, this one's not over $2,000.
Oh, sorry, I thought I read 5,000 somewhere on something else.
712,000.
Yeah, the other one's been approved. All in favour? Show of hands, thanks. Thank you very much. Now, I've lost my cheese.
You just want the running order.
Excuse me. We move to item 4. First of all, notices of motions, notices of rescission. 4.1 is a rescission motion DA 215/219 in brackets 1, 36 to 40 Turner Crescent Orange.
Happy to move it, Mr Chairman.
Moved. Move Councillor Duffy, second to Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, councillors. A little bit earlier on, we heard Councillor Taylor talking about quality of life, and that's what council is about. It's improving our quality of life with services that we provide. And I believe with the traffic impact, looking at pedestrians and service vehicles and all those other type of vehicles and parking and all those issues around such a very narrow street on a very right angle corner, to me is not acceptable. You're looking at numbers of 94 clients, if you like to call them that way, and 25 staff. Look at the number of vehicles there. I look at the report and says, yeah, it may be approvable, but to me it's not approvable because that creates the quality of life that interferes with the people, the residents that are there. I do take part in what I did hear from tonight, which gives a rise to a foreshadowed motion, which I will say that I think this should be deferred until we write to the Minister. I take what Mr Stanford said as regards to Paul Toole, the Minister for Transport and Roads for the regional Australia, with that comment that he made about having access onto the road. And he's like, and Mr Toole, believe it or not, councillors, he was a mayor of Bathurst, so he knows a fair bit about planning. He knows a fair bit about the whole thing, and I've got a lot of time for that, Minister. And I think it's a great opportunity for us to seek his hand in solving this issue, so we can have a win-win for everyone, a win-win for the residents with the traffic coming onto the even just coming onto the highway, because most of our traffic goes down the NDR, doesn't come down that way. And one of the decisions that was raised, consideration was raised here tonight, is actually where the playground is, and you talk about a truck coming over and rolling over, it could finish up in that playground. So I'm supporting the rescission motion. But I also think we should defer it as regards to seeking clarification from the Minister.
Just remind you that you're speaking to the rescission motion. I think you'd know better. You've been on council long enough. Councillor Taylor.
I'll speak to the rescission motion, Mr Mayor. Look, I apologise, I wasn't at the meeting, I was ill that night for the last one, and I would have voted against this. Mr Mayor, the thing that to me, and I mean the residents have outlined here tonight, there are still major traffic concerns in that area. The egress access issue hasn't been resolved. Councillor Duffy has alluded to there may be some light at the end of the tunnel there.
But the fact of the matter is, I heard earlier this evening a councillor refer to the fact that this and another matter was it was approved and consented and approved by staff. Well, on another matter that was. Might I remind the chamber that this particular development, Turner Crescent, was also recommended originally by staff. The councillors in this room at that time that voted against it and went against the staff recommendation subsequently then went to the Land Environmental Court and was upheld. The councillors' decision was upheld. And that's where we sit. That's why we're facing a new DA, and that's why we're looking at this decision. As far as I'm concerned, and we go back to the report, not enough had changed my mind, certainly. And there still are major concerns. And I go back again to that ambience and that quality of life. And I reiterate what the gentleman said here tonight. For us, but it's life. It's a life-changing decision for the residents affected. Residents are still affected under the current setup. Bill can be approached, change the access and egress. I think that may be a solution. I'm not against development per se, but I'm against it disrupting the residents of Turner Crescent's lives. So I'm supporting the rescission motion. I hope that fellow councillors will take into account the concerns of many, many residents up there. As far as I'm concerned, revisiting where we were before, they've reduced the numbers, but it is still not acceptable as far as I'm concerned. Always remember that, and I will reiterate it, that decision, that DA, and was recommended by staff. Council went against it, but the council won in the land.
Councillor Miletto.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Majority of the issues which so far relate to the original DA, and I'm assuming that's what we're voting on, even though there's a rescission motion in, it's against the original DA. The original DA was agreed upon, and
Councillor Miletto, this is against the current DA, not the original. Yeah.
Sorry? The
rescission motion's against the current DA, not the original one.
Sorry, I meant the current DA. Yeah. My apologies. I should have made that clearer. So, in my opinion, to the feedback and the information provided by council directors, is that a consent it complies everything. I do appreciate, and I've listened to the concerns of the residents with regard to traffic. But in my opinion, I believe that those issues can be overcome. I understand that they want it from Marlong Road, but that's not what's before us. I would like to hear from the relevant directors regarding the outcome from the Land Environment Court as to what the developer has done or what efforts to comply.
The numbers.
I'll get that answered first.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Major changes to the development were, probably the biggest one was the reduction in childcare numbers, and then that then decreased the demand on services in there like the car parking. It also did fairly major changes to the design of the building. It lowered it quite a fair bit in the so it was lesser in the streetscape, even though the building was set back in on the site, driving down into Turner Crescent. The gables of the original development would have stood up fairly high. So that's been dropped down there. The development has also been lined up more with the original development application. There was a draft state environmental planning policy that had come out, and more lined up with that now. So the application did address, take into account all the points from the judge in the Land Environment Court, who in her findings was saying that wasn't one particular issue that she particularly had against the original proposal. It was more like death by 1,000 cuts. As the recommendation is for approval, it was considered they addressed those.
Thank you. I mean, it needs to be acknowledged that the people who spoke and the residents around there aren't against the establishment of a childcare centre there. They want to see it go ahead. Their issue has always been with regards to the exiting and entry points to that centre. I believe that with some parking signs being installed in the area on the northern side of that curb, that those issues can be addressed. In my opinion, and I'll be speaking against the rescission motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I rise to speak for the rescission. Nothing has changed with the DA application per se. The original reason we refused it, and I do respect the fact that there's been changes to the building and all those sorts of things, but that's not what we knocked it back for originally. Knocked it back for the same reason is what the people are saying here tonight. And Councillor Miletto is right. The majority of the residents in Turner Crescent are supportive of the childcare facility if the traffic issues are fixed or attended to by having another means for parking and another means for egress and ingress into the childcare facility. So I'd be going against my own, I suppose the reason I voted against it originally, that when it went to the Land and Environment Court, even though staff did approve it, when it did go to the Land and Environment Court, Commissioner agreed with our determination that there was issue with the traffic. Now, reducing the number of students doesn't make the street wider. I don't understand that, mate. I'm a logical person. So reducing the number of students doesn't make the cul-de-sac bigger. So the only way to overcome this issue is to attend to how they get in and out of the school.
Just to correct, it's not a cul-de-sac.
Oh, isn't it? Oh, sorry.
That's why.
I'm sure you read your papers.
Yeah, I've read them thousands of times, yeah. So, you know, for me, I'll be supporting the rescission motion. Yeah.
Thanks, Councillor Wood. Councillor Munro.
Councillors, Mr Mayor, I did go for a walk a couple of Sundays ago. I was very concerned about the traffic implications to the street in regards to the childcare centre. I had an idea of one-way street, but I think that was very well received. It was just a grab at something that might work. I do think if we can, it was approved at walk around. All the people I spoke to, none of them said no, they didn't want a childcare centre there. They just didn't want the traffic problems. I wonder if there a way of going forward with the project, looking into a way that in the next month or so, if Paul Tooll says look into it, if that's truthful, I expect it is. Paul Tooll said that. Well then, could we go in off Turner, go around the back and go out onto Molong Road without upsetting the current planning? Question I'd like to ask.
Can I just ask Councillor Turner, because he was a local member here, I'll venture to say that I find this very interesting where it's the RMS call, not the Minister's call. The Minister would ask for advice from his department. It's not the Minister's call on whether a road goes access or egress. It's not the Minister's call, is it?
It's a big deal.
I'm just asking the same question a different way.
There's my understanding at this point, we have a letter from RMS that are against any egress onto Molong Road or the NDR. Whether Councillor Paul Tooll, the Minister, is somewhat out of order, I don't know. That is, I understand we have it in writing that they are against any egress onto either the NDR or Marlong Road. It would be interesting to get a
No.
more official response.
I just want, I don't know.
Mr. Mayor, that argument with the NDR is long gone, Councillor Turner, when it was approved egress and access from Bunnings. That debate's finished.
So I suppose the question would be if the process of the development time so that it doesn't hold the development up, can we talk to the office of Paul Dool, get clarification on exactly what was said, and then offer that to the developer as a opportunity. Can we do that?
Well, all I can answer is this way. Developer can do what they like, actually. They've been to court and they've come back with this and they've got those reports. But I will certainly ring Minister Toole's office tomorrow and get in writing from him that he made that statement. Because it's very, very dangerous if it's not true, and I'll find out who he made the statement to.
It is very important because it does hold a lot of weight to the benefit of the people.
Yep.
Mr Mayor, is there any way, with the permission of the movers of the motion, that this be deferred until we get that clarification from the Minister's office?
I'd second that.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'll just answer that question. That was my foreshadowed motion, that we defer this till we have a discussion with the Minister and the residents about what can we actually do, whether we need to rezone that little block of land there to give access onto the Marlong Road.
A little bit confusing at the moment. You're moving the rescission then, sorry.
Please, Mr Mayor, on that.
You can't move a rescission and then be then moving also.
Because there's a trigger of 40 days on their approval.
Wait till we win.
Could we get a determination, Mr Mayor?
So we either now vote on the rescission motion, or if another councillor is wishing to bring an amendment.
Yeah.
I'll move an amendment that we defer the matter pending the outcome of those discussions.
Have a mover in Councillor Nugent, a second in Councillor Turner.
May I ask a question, Mr Mayor? It may have changed since my time in the chair. There used to be a trigger of 40 days from the time of the instrument of already been. So if we don't hit that, they legally have the right to start because of the 40 days.
That time period has already passed. It's already
to deal with the rescission motion.
There is already the ability, my understanding, from the time when the application was lodged, even before this rescission motion, apply for a deemed refusal of the development.
Referral would
end it even longer than we've already delayed it. I just check with
the rescission.
I would just confirm that with.
Mr Mayor, yes, I agree with that comment. Yep.
Thank you. Okay. So just hold a second. We've got a rescission motion and we've got a amendment.
I just want a point of clarification before I make a decision. I think it might have been Councillor Taylor or somebody asked earlier tonight with regards to had this applicant indicated whether they were intending on taking any further action should this rescission motion be successful tonight. I note that this has been before the Land and Environment Court before, and there were some recommendations made by the person in charge there, and that they appear all, apart from the traffic, who have been addressed. I'm just wondering where this leaves council.
Mr Mayor, that wasn't pertaining to Turner Crescent, that question. I think it was from Councillor Duffy and pertained to Lintana.
Thanks, Councillor Turner.
Thank you for clarifying that. I knew it was something, but the question is still the same though. Where does this situation leave council? Should we now decide to support a rescission motion based on the last court outcome? Where does this leave council and the ratepayers of Orange with regards to possible legal action in the Land Environment Court, and what would the potential cost of that be to our ratepayers based on the last one?
For you, Mr Chair, So the two matters, so the original application that came before council, that council voted against, the applicant sought recourse through Land Environment Court. They received some advice in that hearing, but the refusal was upheld. They then amended their plans, try to pick up on those matters that were raised in that outcome of that case. That application is now before council in its current form. Council approved that a couple of weeks ago, and the rescission motion now to overturn that approval.
So
what the applicant does from here is a matter for the applicant. It's not a consideration for what we're considering tonight.
Thank you. And if it was to go back to the Land Environment Court, it's just based purely on planning issues. Thank you. Which we sent it to at our last meeting.
The council can approve at the last meeting, approve the development application.
Yes.
So the matter before council tonight is
Decision
or otherwise.
Of course. Thank you.
I'd say you can't really have foreshadowed. It's really it's foreshadowed. It's not an amendment.
Foreshadowed?
You can have a foreshadow if you like. Say if the rescission motion does go, you can have a foreshadow.
Dealt with.
Yeah.
Decision motion has to be dealt with first.
The rescission motion has to be dealt with. Unless you withdraw it.
I'd with an amendment.
Do you want an amendment to that rescission motion? Or did you want...
an amendment which was seconded by Councillor Turner.
All right, so your amendment, give me your wording.
Subject to the outcome of the discussions with...
My understanding with seconding the amendment is the amendment that the decision tonight be deferred until we get a response from the Minister on the information that we were given tonight.
Can I just clarify for all councillors? So the motion that's before councillors that was put by councillors Duffy and seconded by Councillor Taylor is a motion that council rescind the following resolution of the Planning and Development Committee meeting of the 3rd of September 2019, which was the resolution to the consent to the development. But the amendment that has been put forward by Councillor and seconded by Councillor Turner, council resolves to defer the decision to rescind the resolution of the Planning and Development Committee meeting, that further discussions can take place in respect.
What about the legal implications?
So there I may not have been clear in my response.
The 40 days.
The 40-day period within which the applicant could apply, so there's a deemed refusal, has already passed. So we're already in that window of a deemed refusal period.
So does that mean that the applicant hasn't
yet enacted or applied for a deemed refusal applied to the court? The applicant is entitled to do that and would take their own advice on that. Matters deferred, or if the rescission.
Yep, sorry.
So if the matter is deferred, and the next meeting is on the 22nd of October, because the matter is deferred, it would be open to the applicant to apply for a deemed refusal. That would be a matter for the applicant to get their advice on. If the rescission motion is determined tonight and is successful, open to the applicant if it wished to then challenge that decision to the court as well. So we're in that window whichever way you go.
Whichever way we go. I'd like to speak for the deferral, the amendment for the deferral. I was going to speak against the rescission motion. Similar reasons to Councillor Miletto, in the sense that this issue has been to the Land Environment Court. They have made a judgment. We've heard that the issues, most if not all the issues that were raised that were the reason for the Land Environment Court refusing the motion have been addressed by the applicant. So as far as I can see, it's a complying development. I say that, somewhat reluctantly because I've met many of the residents over the course of the last, few weeks, having been to Turner Crescent and met with them. And they're a great group of people, great little community. And this particular series of events has actually brought them a lot closer together. So sometimes there's, positive byproducts from some of these issues. So, and I understand there was actually a meeting last night at which there was a general view that they'd actually prefer to see social and affordable housing on that development rather than the childcare centre, which is an interesting one. So I'm not sure that we can. I don't think it sort of works that we can actually do a swap, but they're open to. Having a development there, it's just what the traffic issues that continue to be a concern. Yes, will there be more traffic in that road? Yes. Will it affect the ambience, the nature of that street? Yes, it will. That's right. Do I think that's the best place for a childcare centre? Well, no, I don't. But that's not what we're deciding tonight. We're deciding, is this a complying development? And we decided 2 weeks ago that it was. I haven't seen anything presented tonight which says it isn't. So I was going to vote against the rescission motion, but I'd like to hear whether there is something to this possibility in relation to what the Minister may have said.
I want a clarification, Mr. Chairman. And it's a valid one too.
I'll make that decision.
With the mover and the seconder of the amendment, happy to include the two people that spoke here tonight on behalf of the residents, and I congratulate the residents for only bringing two speakers forward to be included in the discussion.
Elections are still 11 months away.
They set the discussions with the two people that spoke to council in discussions with the minister.
No, look, I think that's completely.
They're the ones that made contact with the minister.
I think protocol would have it.
The mover and the second, Mr. Chairman.
Well, I'm ruling you out completely out of order. I don't think that's the way that we sort of go around things, that we do that. The statement's been made. I will contact the Minister's office tomorrow and get clarification on it. If that's the case, it's good. I'm agreeing, right? But I just asked the question of Councillor Turner. My experience, that just doesn't seem to work that way, but I hope it would. I'd hope he could influence it.
The vexing issue, Mr. Mayor, is this. I hope that this is all the way it...
Are you speaking for the amendment or the...
I'm speaking against the amendment. Mr. Mayor, my concern here is that we have the rescission motion in front of us. We've been told that Minister Toole has indicated that, and I say this with a bit of experience over the years, you've got to look clearly into when politicians speak and what they actually say. And
I think that's what I was indicating.
I think my interpretation was the Minister said he would be open, the department would be open to discuss. That worries me to a certain extent. I don't support the application as it is at the moment. I would not have supported it a few weeks ago. I stand firm on that. So really, I hope Bill can talk to his department and get a resolution from this, and I know Minister Toole, and I'm sure he will do his best. I can't base my vote just on a speculation that the Minister saying we will have the department look into it or consider it. So I'll be voting for the rescission motion as it sits and as I've seconded it.
Councillor Taylor, any other speakers? Put the amendment first. Or in
I replied, Mr. Chairman.
Right, I've replied. Don't lose it.
Chairman, It goes back to the residents and their quality of life. Quality of life going to be affected severely by this development. What Councillor Whitten said a little bit earlier was that we voted against it before. Nothing much has changed. The traffic movements are still there. The road hasn't widened. Still there. There's pedestrian issues. There's all these other type of issues, and we even heard asbestos again this morning, tonight. I'll be voting for the rescission motion. I would have looked at the amendment, but not now. I can't do it on suspicion, on hope. I can't do that. I would have liked to have been to people that brought the information to us tonight, and we do get information coming to on the night. Regards to discussion with people in higher authorities, and that's basically what it is. It was refused before, and one of the biggest issues was the traffic. Changed my mind on that. Safety of these people is what they've come to. It's the reason why they live there. Developers come there, and it's impeding on their quality of life. And they have an answer. They want it there. Want the access onto the Mulong Road. The answer. We all want it there. I don't think there's anyone else in this room that doesn't want it there.
I think it should be presumption. For the amendment
Except
first.
someone who may not.
For the amendment first. All in favour? Oh, sorry, 6. Against? Amendment becomes a motion. All in favour? Against? Thank you. Certainly follow that up first thing tomorrow morning.
We'll have that coming back on the 22nd of October.
Yeah, we've got that meeting deferred a week. Yeah, sorry. We might be getting to the 26th.
Oh, yeah, it's got to continue.
4.2 is a notice of motion aquatic centre. I'd like to move that motion if I may.
Second, Mr.
Any discussion? All in favour?
Good idea.
Hands up. Against? See what happens, Councillor Duffy, when you word them properly and put the right...
There's a conflict of interest in that one, Mr. Mayor.
Not at this stage. We move on to 5 general reports. 5.1 is change of meeting dates.
The recommendations, Mr. Mayor.
Who's that? Sorry, Councillor Nugent. Seconder, Councillor Duffy. All in favour? Against? Hold. No. Look, you've got their vote.
I'll go the loop.
No, you don't need to come tell. .2, the National Roads Congress.
Councillor Miletto.
Hey, Councillor Duffy.
Oh, sorry, we need a mover and a second for it, first of all, for the change of council meeting date. Yeah, this is all right. We need a mover and a second for National Roads Congress.
I'll move the motion.
Second, Councillor Prevatera, all in favour? Aye, against? Nominations. We've got nominations for Councillor Duffy. Not here to accept, so he's out of the traffic. Councillor Miletto.
Mr. Mayor, I'll withdraw from that. I don't see the need for 3 councillors to go to South Australia for a roads conference. I thought as part of the traffic committee would have been appropriate, but I think the costings is more important than my attendance. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Miletto.
Mr. Mayor, just noting that in the past, or past practice has been that the chair of the infrastructure committee and staff have attended this forum. I'd be nominating Councillor Whitten.
You can do that if you wish.
If we're going to have a councillor attend. But I do have a question in terms of previous attendance at these forums and what reports, what information come back.
I was hoping you'd ask that, Councillor Nugent.
Okay, well,
last year I didn't attend, but I have the biggest attendance record since it's been going, and I've presented a report back to this council every single time, which I can get off file and give to you if you so wish. I was also chaired the Roads to Recovery Committee on the 2 times that the government tried to take that funding away. First time with Director of Technical Service, Michael Ryan, who was here with this, and that was at Moree. We developed that. Then we met with John Anderson to get that extended again. And at not the last one, the one before, I was recognised at having continual attendance and presenting reports, and on 4 or 5 of those I presented a paper.
Mayor, do you want to go?
I'm going.
You going this time?
Yep.
Well, I don't see any benefit in me going.
You've got Duffy.
You're the mayor of the city. I'll stay here and do all the potholes on your behalf.
Don't let me have sleepless nights. Okay. You have the nominations there. Thank you very, very much. We move down on to 5.3 is a request to enter a new parking agreement, Orange Central Square.
Recommendation.
Second it.
Councillor Turner, seconded Councillor Munro. Any discussion?
I mean, I'm happy to support it, but I driving and making everyone go into the big shopping centres, I'm just a little bit concerned about the stretch of the main drag where people have still got that half hour in front of that they have to deal with, and they can't have lunch down at Cheeky Baristas or up the top at Wingwa or any of those places there. I think we need to look at that, and we're still waiting on a parking report to come back to council.
Yeah, I've got a few more. I've got something else I got to include. I was going to bring it tonight, but I really am interested in that breakdown, and some of these people have been sprung.
Okay, we've got a mover and a seconder. All in favour? Against? Thank you. Need someone move that we go into closed. Take a trip tonight.
Interpretation of what you said.
The recommendation is council adjourn into closed meeting and members of the press and public be excluded from the closed meeting, and access to correspondence reports relating to the items considered during the course of the closed meeting will be withheld unless declassified by separate resolution. This action is taken in accordance with Section 10A brackets 2 of the Local Government Act 1993, as the items listed come with the following provisions. 6.1, the asphalt plant Orange. This item is classified confidential under the provisions of Section 10A brackets 2 of the Local Government Act of 1993, which permits the meeting to be closed to the public for business relating to C, information that would, if disclosed, confer a commercial advantage on a person with whom the council is conducting or proposes to conduct business. 6.2, Shirley Road land acquisition. This item is classified confidential under the provisions of Section 10A brackets 2 of the Local Government Act of 1993, which permits the meetings to be closed to the public for business relating to, in brackets C, information that would, if disclosed, confer a commercial advantage on a person with whom the council is conducting or proposes to conduct business.